So everybody, welcome in. It is the Sooners on SI post-game podcast here from the beautiful Lincoln Financial Field in Philly. Ryan Chapman here alongside the great Carson Field. Carson, how did you enjoy the Philly experience?
Very cool atmosphere. This is my first time in Philly, so enjoyed it. Cool to be at an NFL stadium, even if it was nowhere near capacity today. I'm tired. My voice is going out, I guess, but fun game. OU obviously looked fantastic, both sides of the ball, and we'll dive right into that.
Yeah, a smidge under 28,000 made their way out today, so it didn't quite matter if people were talking on hot mics or whatever. It didn't get anything going there. There was not much juice from the Temple side of the stadium. From the Oklahoma side, there was, and then there wasn't, Carson, because Oklahoma comes out. We asked the question under Brent Venables. They've kind of had some struggles, whether it be actually losing games or a couple years back, UCF, a team that they were much, much better than, having to go way, way down to the wire on that. Didn't go as well, even though they got the win. Today, there was none of that. Oklahoma came out on the offensive side of the ball, scored on their first 4 possessions. On the defensive side of the ball, allowed 1 first down through 5 possessions, 42-3. Ended up being, this was, if you're looking for like a, how do you turn the corner and carry that? We weren't going to say, hey, the corner's been turned by beating Temple. But to beat Michigan last week and then to just totally roll over the Owls, this is what good teams do to bad football teams.
No, it 100% is, and I know it's a similar score line to what we saw against Illinois State in Week 1. 1 more touchdown today, but the effort was so much better, I felt like, both sides of the ball. Obviously, the defense controlled that game and was great. There was no opportunity for Evan Simon. He had the second best quarterback rating in the nation, and sure, those were against 2 bad teams, Howard and UMass. But that's you still have to be fairly decent to do that, and OU gave him nothing. I think he finished with 75 yards. He was under duress all day long thanks to the front 7. The secondary, obviously, we've talked about Bowen, Guillory, just really good effort from them, as it has been in the first 2 games. So, I mean, just very complete, and I feel like it's a good thing to get a landslide win before playing a team like Auburn.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get a ton of preview on Auburn next week, but something that was good for next week, Kendall Dolby back in the lineup today. I think I did the math, 357 days, I believe. We're tired, don't check us. It was really, really, really close to a year to the day since he went down against Tennessee last year. Comes back into the lineup, and with no Gentry Williams today, that meant that Kendall Dolby slotted across from Cortland Guillory, finished tied for the team with 4 total tackles, which I think shows you just what kind of day it was for Oklahoma. The starters were in and out, that kind of thing. But him, and I believe it was Samuel Mosigo that both ended up with 4. Maybe it was Reggie Powers. Reggie Powers, I think, was the one with 4, actually. I can look here in a second. But he came back in, and that meant that, man, this defense, I feel like we did so much yada-yadaing about it in the offseason, not because we thought it wasn't going to be good, but because so many question marks were about the offense and all that. We'll get to the offense, but another incredible showing today. 3 games into the season, Oklahoma doesn't have a turnover forced on defense, Carson, but it doesn't feel like it's because, oh my gosh, they're in the wrong spot, the wrong place. The closest they got today was Samuel Mosigo in the end zone, tips one of Evan Simon's passes up, and Grayson Halton lays all the way out, doesn't quite get there. But they are not turning the ball over because teams are snapping the ball 3 times and having to punt. It's been kind of unbelievable that this defense has been so good without even having to force a turnover.
No, OU's defense has not been on the field a lot, and when they have been, they've been great. And I think teams, especially you look at Illinois State Temple, maybe have been a little bit more conservative at some point in the game, knowing, okay, we are not going to win this football game. Let's keep our guys healthy. Let's not do anything too ballsy, or else maybe someone gets hurt. Let's not throw into crazy coverage. The pass game's not working. So I think part of the no turnovers has to do with just different, more conservative play calling on the opponent's ends. Maybe not necessarily the case in Michigan, but I mean, that's true freshman quarterback. They didn't want to turn everything over to him in that game. So it's not, I don't think it's an area for concern. I don't really think there are any true areas other than some nicks, bruises, stuff like that of concern for the defense.
Yeah, you look at today, if we take out the end of half where they basically just took a knee, Temple had 13 possessions, 3 and outs, 9 of those 13 possessions. The 1 scoring drive was off of the John Mateer interception, and then basically Temple had 1 sustained drive, the 11-play drive at the end of the game when it was backups for everybody, and even that resulted in a missed field goal. So you look at everything that went down there, and now on the year, this is a fantastic stat from Brady Trantham. Opponents are 7 of 41 against OU's defense right now on the year. 7 of 41, and man, it's one of those things where there were a couple moments where whether it be Reggie Powers, who got called up to be a blitzer today at the cheetah spot. He had a quarterback hit and then eventually got a sack on the same possession there early in the game. Whether it's the fact that, how many times today, man, did you get to like a 3rd and short-ish or a 3rd and 4 or less, and the snap happens, and whether it's David Stone, there was one where David Stone split the double team, and there were 2 offensive linemen just turned around like, that's not good. You had that a couple times. You had Jaden Jackson a couple times. This defense has been smothering through 3 weeks, and I get it. One of those offenses, Illinois State, one of them is Temple. Michigan, I don't think it's going to be like a top 5 offense or anything like that.
No.
Had no problem zipping up and down the field against a bad Central Michigan team, albeit, but they had no problem today, and this Oklahoma defense gave them hell for 4 quarters last week.
No, I think today was more just assurance on what we saw against Michigan. Obviously, Justice Haynes, he finished with a good stat line, but that was mostly because of a 75-yard run. Today, I mean, Therese Worthy, he's a good back. Jay Ducker, he's a decent back. I mean, they don't have a horrible running game, and OU made it look like it was horrible. I felt like, you mentioned this a second ago, those 3rd and short situations, there was never really a doubt. You'd see them, it's 3rd and 1, it's 3rd and 2, OU's gonna get the stop. And they did time and time again. Really, it was a couple of longer, like 15-yard runs, stuff like that kind of kept some of those Temple drives moving, but those did not happen, as you said, very often.
3 of 16 today for Temple on 3rd down. Here's the kicker, 104 yards of total offense. Just absolutely unbelievable. You go up and down. It was 4 sacks total for Oklahoma. We talked about the Reggie Powers one. You had guys from all over the place. Taylor Heim got in there. Wyatt Gilmore got in there. When you look at it, 11 tackles for loss. They forced a fumble but weren't able to pop down on it. And 4 of those pass breakups, 3 of them were tipped balls by Samuel Masigo, and Owen Heineke got in there and got one. So it was another fantastic showing for Oklahoma's defense, save for one moment, one play, which will actually impact the Auburn game next week. With 10:05, I think, left in the 3rd quarter, R. Mason Thomas comes around. He gets hit for a roughing the passer for coming up high, face mask to face mask. That was then called up to the booth for targeting, which I don't know how that play got reviewed for targeting, but the interception where Keontae Lewis, it felt like got hit for the same exact face mask to face mask. I understand the roughing the passer thing. I would not have thrown the flag, but I get it. Quarterbacks are an endangered species. It's like Brent Venables said after the game. He didn't get a good look at it, but anytime you go face mask to face mask, you put yourself in trouble for something like that. And now R. Mason Thomas out for most of the second half today. Crucially, he'll be out for the first half next week against Auburn, which I think Oklahoma fans just went through the other way, right? With Jason Barham, the Michigan linebacker who was out for the first half against Oklahoma a week ago. That's going to be pretty massive, but at the same time, if Oklahoma's run defense plays like this, I think it's going to be more about what can Oklahoma's secondary do on the outside. And it seemed like coming off the field, Gentry Williams, some of the GA, stuff like that, we're building them up like, hey, we'll get you back out there, stuff like that. So we'll see if that means you get Gentry Williams plus Cortland Gilroy plus Kendall Dolby, what that means for OU secondary next week.
Yeah, and I mean, losing a guy like R. Mason Thomas is huge for a half, but I have been impressed with the defensive end group outside of him too. Taylor Wine, we heard so much praise about him throughout the offseason. He's lived up to it. I feel like Marvin Jones Jr. has also been really good. 3 tackles today. He's been pretty consistent. I know Danny Okoye didn't play, but he looked good in the first 2 games of the year. So they have manpower, obviously not the star power that R. Mason Thomas brings, but there are guys, and they've shown that they have depth at that position group, so that's at least a little silver lining there.
Yeah, I thought Marvin Jones Jr., again, I don't think the box score is going to be super impressive if you're looking for an individual stat line, because...
especially on defense.
Yeah, on defense specifically, they were so good as a unit. Brent Venables said that they're having fun. It's like it's recess out there. That's what it looks like, and they're having fun, and that was something that Kendall Dolby had used. Recess is something on his own. So we'll see what that thing looks like. And again, Brent Venables, you can tell he's really happy with where this defense has been, because he was asked about the turnovers. He gave a big smile. He's like, it's awful, right? It's terrible. And he's like, no, I'm able to joke about it because they've been so good through 3 weeks. That's something that I even talked to Ben Arbuckle about that. I asked him, hey, when you've got a defense that plays like this, what does that do for you as an offensive coordinator, as a play caller? Does that let you open things up? He's like, yeah, absolutely. It lets you be way more aggressive. Now, there's certain matchups. Yeah, you got to be aware of what area of the field you're on. But it really feels like if Oklahoma gets into more close games, which I expect them to get into more close games with the schedule that they've got, that this is going to be a spot where, yeah, it might be frustrating, but if you're sitting in like a 3rd and 2 near midfield, I think that Ben Arbuckle can look down and go, hey, most people are expecting a run here. Can we take maybe a deep shot, knowing that if we have to, if Britt Venables tells me, hey, let's punt, or hey, let's go for it, and you're handing the ball back over at midfield, if you're not able to get it, that you're able to go, that defense is probably going to go out there and force a turnover, though they haven't done it yet. I have no doubt they will, or get a stop, because 2 of these 3 games, not the Michigan game, but if John Mateer hadn't thrown an interception deep into OU territory, we're talking about only allowing the 1 touchdown to Michigan and shutting out Illinois State and Temple.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I mean, it's pretty remarkable to think about it. You look at 108 total yards for Temple today. That's just absolutely absurd. And it's not just, they've played bad teams. They did that against a great running team like Michigan. And it's just, like I said, further assurance that this defense is legitimate. And obviously take away something you need against some of these better offenses. Michigan, granted, not a proven product offensively. They could very well turn out to be one of those teams. Not so great offense, good defense like in Iowa. They could be a lot better. They looked a lot better today in their game against Central Michigan. But there will be better offenses. But just judging off of the 3-game sample size that we've seen, I think that's a good sign.
You flip that over to the other side of the ball, and it could be not more night and day for what we saw in Temple's offense and Oklahoma's offense. To be expected, 515 total yards of offense, like we said. 4 straight possessions where the Sooners just zipped down the field and score. We got to 25-0 in some really, really random ways. We'll recap it, but it was kind of like a story of 2 quarters in a way. After the first quarter, now Oklahoma had a reverse play get blown up for -9 yards. They had John Mateer take a 10-yard sack. So Oklahoma was actually in the negative for rushing yards in the first quarter. Then they flip it around and really start to get things going on the ground. Let's start with Torrey Blaylock, because we're going to talk about Mateer. We'll talk about Jaron Kanak and all that. But Blaylock, I thought, again, he got every snap on that first drive. Jay Knott did not get into the game till the fourth quarter day. And I thought that it was a lot about, like, hey, Torrey Blaylock was having a really, really nice day. He had that first rushing touchdown, which was a tough run, finishing over a guy at the goal line and then standing tall. Then his second touchdown run, that 18-yard run, that was OU at that point their second longest rush of the season, behind Mateer's 19-yarder against Michigan. It was the longest rush by an OU running back so far this year. Blaylock had an 11-yard run. And then you look at it, and later in the game, he had a 25-yarder where he kind of got to the edge and showed off that speed in the open field. Ended up with 100 yards rushing on 14 rushes, 2 touchdowns. That was a 7.1 average without really having like a 60-yarder to really juice it. I was a little bit more encouraged by Torrey Blaylock, and it felt like running. I'll have to go back and watch it again. There was a lot going on in the press box today to see what Logan Howland did at left tackle for Michael Fasusi, but it felt like Oklahoma, they have a game plan, Carson, where they can spread them out, go through the air early, and then come back with a running game. I don't know if it's ever going to be like, oh my gosh, Oklahoma can say we're going to run it right here for 4 straight quarters, but I think Ben Arbuckle's got a pretty good feel for that. And something else too, they had 3 touch passes today that all went for 10 yards or more, and that for me is basically a rush, but it went into the passing column. If you add, I don't have the exact number, but let's say you just add 30 to that, then you're talking about getting to close to 300 yards rushing on 42 carries. I think Oklahoma will take that.
Yeah, and I think what's really encouraging is good teams get consistently better at the things they're not great on. The first game we talked about, okay, they couldn't rush against Illinois State. That might be trouble. They looked better against Michigan, and they looked really good on the ground today. Torrey Blaylock, as you mentioned, just so explosive, and just doing this as a true freshman, very impressive. 7 yards a carry. I think OU's kind of found themselves a back for the future. I think he's a really good player. That was, still bizarre. Still can't figure out that one. Only 4 carries for 11 yards. Just a little confusing. I thought Robinson looked good. He made the most of his touches. Obviously got that third quarter touchdown. So I feel like the running game was really encouraging. The line did their part in kind of moving it down the field after it was that John Mateer to Jaron Kanak connection. A lot of Zion Kearney, Keontae Lewis before his injury. I felt like they just kind of opened it up, and it shows the versatility that this offense can have at peak potential.
Yeah, that Blaylock 25-yard run was OU's longest rush of the year for a play until Mateer went 51 yards to the house on the very, very next snap. The Jay Knott thing just continues to be bizarre. Brent was asked about it after the game, and he basically said, yeah, not where he's at where we want to be in like any facet. We have faith that he'll continue to, roll forward and get better. Then I thought it was interesting. I don't think he was like making a point or anything, Brent Venables. When he was asked about Torrey Blaylock, he's like, yeah, he's been spectacular, not 100% healthy. I just thought it was interesting that he put that out there. We know that Ott had been dealing with the shoulder. Blaylock also dealing with his shoulder. His response has just kind of been like, that's football, and he's rocking and rolling. The thing that both Arbuckle and John Mateer said about Torrey Blaylock is that we can go in, we can give him a correction, and he can take that from the film room to the practice field to the field on Saturdays pretty quickly, and that's what John Mateer said. That's what makes him special, and you're going to need to keep getting better. It's exactly like you said. I think we've seen a defense that has gotten better each week. I think Oklahoma offensively has gotten better each week, and a lot of that's due to last week getting 4 new starters on the offensive line, 3 guys that didn't play in week 1. But today, Michael Vasusi not in. He had the boot on the left ankle. We know he had said he had sprained that in the last drive against Michigan last week. So seems like a situation where Oklahoma said, Auburn up next, really need him to be good. But having a guy like Logan Howland to be your swing tackle, I think that's like really, really valuable that he got all that experience last year for Derek Simmons and Michael Vasusi to have someone that can step in and play both sides for him.
Yeah, no, it's definitely looking like he's using that experience. He learned a lot from last year. I know that they kind of talked about a lot during fall camp about, okay, this year sucked for the offensive line in 2024. We're gonna be so much better because of that. And you're at least starting to see the process of that. We had some big concerns after Illinois State about this run blocking is not good. The run blocking looked really solid today. You see Blaylock get a lot of big holes. Obviously, Mateer's able to scramble pretty regularly. I think 75 yards is what he finished with. So, I mean, the line looks a lot more encouraging. That was my biggest concern with this team after week 1. Like, how are they going to be able to contain really good defenses? I don't think we saw a really good defense today in Temple, but we did last week against Michigan, and it was stellar. I feel like today it would have been stellar against a good defense too, so I think that's encouraging.
Yeah, it'll be a lot better competition, obviously, next week against Auburn. This Temple team, I mean, I think I might pick Illinois State. Like, I get that they had played UMass and Howard. It's what we said. That
I think that would be a heck of a game.
Yeah, it was like every single thing we had said was it was against UMass and Howard. It was against UMass and Howard. Well, what did Oklahoma do? It was much, much, much better today. A big part of that, especially early, was Jaron Kanak. Again, you look at it, Oklahoma tries to run their reverse on 1st and 10 from the Temple 23, gets hit for a 9-yard loss. Second down's an incomplete pass, and then, what is it, 3rd and 19? That was impossible for this team a year ago. It was really, really hard for Oklahoma 3 years ago. In Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Lovey's first season, 3rd and 19, you need 19 yards, you get 23 from Jaron Kanak. Kanak also had the little toss to punter Jacob Ulrich, who was not punting again today in the game, but he had that right hamstring wrap. He was punting in pregame, and I guess if they're going to put him out there to jog out and catch a 2-point conversion, then going to be closer there. Kanak had another big 3rd down pickup in a 3rd and long later in the game. I mean, I just thought it was incredibly impressive from what Oklahoma and John Mateer and that offense did in the first 4 possessions. Now, Arbuckle did say, Carson, like, hey, thought we ramped down a little bit. I need that one place they need to get better at is taking every single possession super serious. But the lull was basically just the first 2 possessions of the second half. Then they ran it back up again and started scoring again until they basically put Michael Hawkins Jr. in the game. Yeah, no,
it was a little bit of a lull to start the third, and that's easy to do when you have such a commanding lead. You know that you have this game in control. So I don't think it's too much of a cause for concern, especially considering the response was back-to-back touchdowns with the Robinson, or I guess that was a short pass. Robinson short pass from Mateer, and then obviously the 50-plus yard rush from Mateer. I thought that was good to get it into gear. Hawkins obviously didn't look amazing. Looked like he could run. What we knew about Hawkins, very fast guy, very mobile. But that was garbage time. Not a whole lot to take from something like that, I don't think.
Yeah, I only asked him to throw the ball 3 times, which I did think it was interesting. We talked about it on the pod this week. I thought it was important for Oklahoma to go out and say, hey, I know that Brent Venables had said they want to be mindful of Michael Hawkins Jr., and they wanted to redshirt him if they can. But I also think it's important for him to get a couple snaps where Ben Arbuckle's in his ear calling his plays, not just Seth Luttrell's plays and all that stuff, or Joe John Finley's plays from the bowl game from last year. I thought that was actually really important for Michael Hawkins Jr. Only asked to throw the ball 3 times. They did move the chains enough to set up that second field goal attempt from Austin Welch. Ended up being a miss, but I think you have to feel better about the special teams, which we'll get to here in a minute, with Tate Sandell's 52-yard make. That was one of those things that I'm like, hey, we might have to get 2 or 3 games on beyond, but if you missed that first one against Michigan because you won the game, if you're good after that, I think that could be a little bit forgiven for maybe nerves first time being out there, but he banged through a 52-yarder today. What'd you make of Chapman here through the air? I thought that at times it was excellent. There was he spun out of a sack early on the first possession. He spun out of a sack again and kept the chains moving. And then I thought, especially on that field goal drive, he took a little bit, which that's kind of the give and take. And I think that's what Oklahoma fans are very familiar with. If you remember back to the early Baker days, that the spectacular and what he can do on a third down outweighs that at times drives get killed. Sure, like, could you have thrown that away? But I thought he did a pretty decent job today of limiting the hits, 20 of 34, 282, 1 through the air, 1 interception. Only took the 1 sack, but I thought he did a better job of, outside of that 1 sack, looking around and saying, hey, can I dump it off to someone along the line of scrimmage and just keep this thing moving?
No, overall, I thought it was very impressive. 20 for 34 is not just record-breaking completion percentage. It isn't, but you've got to like how mobile he is. We've talked about that time and time again. Just being able to make plays, try to make something out of nothing doesn't always work. That kind of fits that mold of your guys like a Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel. He kind of has a little bit of that in him, which, as we know with those quarterbacks, even when they were great in college, there are some turnovers. There are some mistakes. You're not going to have a 70% completion percentage most of the time. And that's okay, especially when you're scoring 42 points. You're getting both the passing game and the running game working. There are some drawbacks, but I feel like from what we've seen in 3 games, the positive outweigh those drawbacks.
Yeah, and I thought he played well today. Again, This is, when you get into stuff like this, you have to nitpick, right? Because I thought he did everything he needed to do against Michigan.
Right. I thought it was less Herculean than what we saw against Michigan last week, but it was still a very above-average performance.
Yeah, no, it was one of those things, too, that I think that Mateer, like the rest of the offense, throttled it down there coming out of halftime, which I was bored.
You're no longer
quarter. Yeah.
You're no longer having to okay, we have to win this game. Foot's kind of off the gas. I know that's never what coaches want to see, but their play calling is going to be a little bit more vanilla. It's a little harder to get juiced when you have only 27,000 people on hand.
Yeah.
Half of those are not your fans. So, I mean, part of me gets it, and I don't think that should be too concerning.
No, and you would know better than me. Obviously, you were down there. Man, it really felt like by the time that Oklahoma had gone up 18-0 on that third score, the Temple offense was so overmatched. I mean, it was like a college team playing a high school team at times. It looked like early. I mean, Temple, through the first 4 drives, had picked up, 30 yards on 4 drives, but only 1 first down. It really, really felt like that everyone on the Temple sideline, or the fans at least, kind of looked around and they were like, well, it's cool that we're getting to see Oklahoma play, and we hope that our friends that play on that football team make a good play here or there, but the atmosphere, not that there was a ton anyway, it got sucked out immediately. It was very much like, all right, well, I felt like even the OU fans were like, this is cool, especially the ones that don't opt to get to Norman, but it was a spot where I could forgive everyone, because I thought that's where you need to create your own energy a ton, was toward the end of the second quarter, which by that time the game was well in hand, and Oklahoma already take care of business.
Yeah, it was a little bit dead, and to be fair, Temple's such a new-look program with Casey Keeler coming in. That program, I think their best days are ahead of them. I think he's a real good coach. Obviously won 2 FCS championships, and I think they're a talented enough team, but you look at a pure size perspective, they're not going to match up with a team like Oklahoma. They could be a decent team against other AAC teams. I have no doubt that they'll win a couple more games at least this year. But when you go up against the size, speed, and athleticism of a team like OU, even at your home field, it's just not going to go well. And obviously the crowd was pretty dead. A lot of empty seats that were taken at the beginning of the game by the third quarter. So it was kind of dead, but still a really cool environment for these players, obviously playing at an NFL venue.
Yeah, I thought that it was really, really apparent, the athleticism difference, when Isaiah Satania had the ball in his hands. He finished with 97 yards on 7 catches, one of those being a 28-yarder, which was the touch pass, which was basically like a reverse or a jet sweep or stuff like that. Really, really good day for Satania. Kanik, again, 86 yards on 4 catches. He's going to continue his charge for the Mackey. And I thought the only thing for the wide receivers, Deion Burks had a moment where he was at the middle of the field on the left hash. He had kind of turned up field, and one of the safeties was able to come over and try to shoestring him, and he did get Burks. Otherwise, that would have been another massive, massive explosive play. But other than that tackle, I thought when Arbuckle and Mateer got the ball to the playmakers out in space, that's when you were like, oh yeah, Temple cannot hang with this Oklahoma team.
No, they really couldn't. It's just, and it's no fault of theirs, it's just harder to get these athletes to Temple than it is OU. It's an SEC program.
Yeah, we knew that as well. Good to see Zion Kearney get back out there. Had 4 targets, 2 catches, one really, really nice, and I think that was the 16-yarder was the one over to the Temple sideline that moved the
jump
chains.
Pass.
Yeah, where Mateer was asked about that after the game. Was he about just hurling that thing across his body?
Yeah, no, that was pretty hilarious. Mateer was like, yeah, some of my baseball instincts came in there. So it was funny to see that. But, I mean, we've seen it happen and we've seen it work before. Tim Tebow obviously had that iconic one. Sorry to bring back some old memories, OU fans. But, yeah, it was an impressive play.
Elijah Thomas got out there finally as a wide receiver today. He hauled in his first catch, but I thought the biggest one was Hawkins had him. He had a step on his cornerback out there, and Hawkins let fly. The ball, I think, just drifted a little bit too far toward the other hash, and it was a little bit overthrown. Otherwise, I thought Elijah Thomas could have had a really, really, really big catch and run, and I just think it's good to see Zion Kearney get out there. Giovanni Gibson continues to bring a lot of juice on the sideline, but he's not playing quite yet. He traveled, though, which I think
that's
is
encouraging.
A little bit of a reward, A. Brent Reynolds likes to reward those guys who are good leaders on the sideline, things like that. But 2, if you weren't close to getting back in, like, for instance, Jacob Sexton did not travel after the injury he sustained. Troy Everett, who got dinged up in this week, did not travel. Those guys weren't close, weren't even out there. Eli Bowen did travel, though he never even went through warm-ups, was in street clothes. A guy like Taylor Tatum went through warm-ups, never really was going to get back into the game, things like that. But I thought that's a good sign that they're traveling. Giovanni Gibson, still think maybe Kent State, maybe the other side of the bye week, but it is sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, getting somebody like Giovanni Gibson, I know we've talked about what he could bring to this team. We haven't seen it in person yet, but his size, what he did last year at Pine Bluff, sure, FCS program, you're seeing that work for Keontez Lewis right now. So I think that's just another weapon and a different type of weapon that if they could get him in against a team like Kent State, maybe not even start him that game, maybe get him in third quarter when they're up against a really not so great Kent State team, get him some reps, get him some catches, good to go by Texas, that would be huge.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that thing looks like. I think some good vibes on the special teams this week, too. Like you mentioned, Grayson Miller punting again, 4 punts, 200 yards, 50 yards per kick, put him inside the 20 twice, also had 1 touchback, but it was a punting mismatch today. That Temple punter is one of the worst college punters I've ever seen. It's not even close, kind of insane there. But the big one, though, Tate Sandell rolls out there for the 52-yarder. That was a spot where called the timeout. Did that kick go in? We couldn't really tell from the press box, the initial one where he burned the timeout. It looked like it was really, really, really close.
It looked like it went in, yes.
Okay, so it looked like he banged through the 52-yarder initially. Forgive me, they did not show that replay in the press box for whatever reason. It was kind of weird.
No, it was close.
Right after the timeout.
And I'm saying it went in from, I heard OU fans behind me say it went in.
Yeah.
They could have just been lying. They could have been homers, but I thought it was good.
It's really, really hard. I don't think people expect how hard it is to track a football through that little viewfinder on that camera. When you're under the...
Yeah, I'm no good when it comes to field goals, so sorry.
Here's the thing, though. Called the timeout, Casey Keeler did. Tate Sandell rolls back out there, and that second one had even more leg. It was well through. That was the 52-yarder. Came out, hit the chip shot, the 29-yarder as well, so kind of got a little bit of those shitters out. I think that's really, really good for Oklahoma and Tate Sandell that put that one beside him, bangs through a couple here, as well as that other one against Michigan. So he's now 3 for 4 on the year. They did get Austin Welch in there, which... Brent Reynolds had praised Austin Welch for his work during fall camp and all that stuff that he had pushed Sandell. He missed his 52-yarder. That one wasn't really close. No. So you're going to be rock and roll with Tate Sandell. And most importantly, there was one punt that Satania fielded that I was like, why are you catching that football? But for the most part, a lot more fair catches today from Satania. I thought it was a lot cleaner in the punt return game as well.
It definitely was. They're really, aside from that one, I know exactly which one you're mentioning. It was very clean in the return game. I thought, as you mentioned, Sandell, we knew that he was a talented kicker. His numbers didn't lie from UTSA. I think it's more just getting that confidence after nailing one plus 50 yards. I think that's gigantic. Welch, I mean, it's it's one of those things that it's a game that was already won. You got to give him some reps. He's someone that worked hard. I like that move from Brent Venables, even if the kick didn't go in. But as you said, Sandell is going to be the guy moving forward, and that's apparent after today.
Yeah, 5 for 5 on red zone scoring chances for Oklahoma. That's something Brent Venables is going to enjoy. Still need to get a little bit more consistent on third down, I think. 6 of 13 for Oklahoma. You saw a week ago the spectacular plays. We mentioned a couple of really nice third down conversions, but I think part of that is going to be as they get more and more confidence and build this running game, that's going to help you stay out of third and long, things like that. Another part of that, too, though, will be you get Michael Fasusi back at left tackle, then that should be another big way towards just another physical hulking body that can try and move guys off the line of scrimmage. So we'll see there. It was a fun trip out here to Philly. We had a great time here on a Thursday and Friday. Not a lot going today, though, as this one was pretty dry, which I think, again, is a big sign of growth for this Oklahoma team. It was a situation where you need to bring your own energy. I think everyone could have forgiven Oklahoma if they came out here and it was like 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, 14-0 until like a late score in the second quarter, and then get that thing going. No, it felt like Oklahoma blitzed out to a 25-0. And credit to Temple for continuing to play, but I think you saw like the energy was sucked out of Temple's sideline immediately because Oklahoma just came out here and ended the game in the first road game of the year.
Yeah, good teams don't mess around, and OU did not mess around. That's what impresses me. Sure, it lagged a little bit in the third quarter, but when OU needed to churn out some good, efficient offense, the Sooners absolutely did that. So, I mean, that's the most important thing, and like I said, good teams don't screw around.
It's just been so long since I think Oklahoma had a defense that they can rely on like this.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part. It's the old thing, right? Defense travels. Well, whether this was a raucous atmosphere or whether it was kind of a library, Oklahoma didn't really have to create tons of juice for themselves, or it was like, how are they going to get fired up? Because defense is coming out, flying over the field, hitting big negative plays. I thought that was really, really big to start things off here, and that's certainly going to serve Oklahoma well because you look around college football and there are teams that have screwed around left, right, and center. Iowa State, I'm not saying Iowa State's as good as Oklahoma or anything, but Iowa State in a dogfight late against Arkansas State on the road. You look at some of the other things like Texas. It took Arch forever to get anything completed going. Now, that game's still going on, but it was 14-3, I think, at halftime against UTEP, and Arch had like a moment where 5 straight incompletions and an interception. Like, even comparison to the sputters for Oklahoma's offense, from what we saw from week one, like this looks like a much better unit already. I wonder how much of that is just simply new offensive line and how much of that is, hey, when you play against Michigan, you open up the playbook a little bit more. So when Ben Arbuckle's trying to hide stuff, then you can say, well, we can run every play we ran against Michigan, and that's, I think, why you saw 3 or 4 touch passes. Because it's like, hey, I bet Ben Arbuckle's got more stuff to get guys to the perimeter, but he's like, we've already put the touch passes on film. Why not just do that over and over again and make Auburn prepare for it going left, going right, multiple guys doing it. I thought it was just a really, really, like this is what great teams do. They come out here and they just smoke a team they're supposed to smoke without much drama, and it's on to the next one type thing.
No, it definitely is. I mean, you see teams like Clemson. Obviously, they lost today, but before that, last week, letting Troy stay in the game for all 4 quarters. And Clemson's a good football team, even if they have a close win and a loss to Georgia Tech. That's a good football team. OU, though, just didn't leave any doubt in the first 10 minutes of the game, and that's the biggest thing. They look like a winning football team, one that can compete for both conference and national titles, which is what we've heard time and time again from Venables, and it looks like it could at least be a possibility.
Yeah, it should be really, really fun. Business picks up again next week when Auburn comes to town. That'll be a top 25 matchup in Norman, the afternoon kickoff, so should be good there. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, just need to get some sleep, get regrouped before we cover the Auburn game, obviously, but fun to see a new city, see a new stadium.
For sure.
See the Sooners look really good, and just, have another good day of coverage.
42-3, it ends there. Plenty of stuff on Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. We've got videos from every single interview. Brent Venables, Ben Arbuckle, John Mateer, Kendall Dolby, Torrey Blaylock, a bunch of the defensive guys. You can also head there for Carson's highlights. He did a fantastic job with that. You've got my takeaways. You've got Hoove's stock report, Aber's report card, Brady Trantham, our new addition working on the PFF grades right now, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. If you're just looking for the videos, head over to John's YouTube page, John Hoover Media. That's the place to go there. And like I said, we'll be back in Norman. Schedule this week. I haven't got it officially, but as it's been, Monday night players usually. So if you're looking for more content, reaction from the players. Monday night's the place for that. Tuesday, mid-morning toward noonish, that's when we wrap up talking to Ben Arbuckle, Brent Venables, all that fun stuff, and we'll work our way into Auburn week as it goes. But for Hoop, for Brady, for Aber, back home, for Carson and I up here at the Press Box in Philly. Thanks for listening to the Sooners on SI podcast. On the podcast, we'll talk to you guys next Wednesday, but head to the site. You know what to do. Plenty of content to come all night long and into Sunday at OklahomaSooners on SI.com.